I, Phil McNeely, President of the Duncanville Board of Trustees, call this meeting of the Duncanville Independent School District order. Let the record show that a quorum of Board of Trustees is present and that the meeting has been duly called and that the notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Good evening. Our mission at the Duncanville ISD is to engage, equip, and empower all scholars to achieve their unique potential. We will now move into opening ceremony. Trustee Veracruz, would you please lead us in a prayer?
Good evening, everyone. If you would just join me for a word of prayer. Mighty God, thank you that you hear and answer our prayers. Hear our prayer and be in the midst of our meeting tonight. Thank you that your presence calms the troubled sea of life and speaks peace to our souls. Give us clear minds and peaceful hearts as we gather together. We pray for favor and protection over all students, administration, campuses, and leaders. Give those in authority over students wisdom and revelation in everything they do. Make them the vessel to speak life over our students. May we live in the light of your salvation, experiencing the freedom that is ours in you. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, amen.
Amen. Trustee Fahey will now lead us in the pledge to the Texas flag and the United States flag.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated.
We'll move on to the superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to Dr. Smith.
Thank you, President McNeely, board members, those that are in attendance. I have the following items that I would like to report on for this month's superintendent report. The first item is the legislative update from April. Of course, each month we report on the legislative session, new information, things that have transpired from the last time that we had a board meeting. And our district is very, very engaged on a weekly basis in the legislative session. And so I want to provide you with a few highlights. There's a lot happening right now, and we're making sure that your priorities board are remaining at the forefront for our local legislators. As I mentioned, we regularly meet with the different legislative offices in our area, and we're also working closely with important groups like North Texas Public Schools Legislative Network, TASA, which is Texas Association of Secondary School Administrators, TASB, Texas Association of School Board, Moke Casey, and Raise Your Hand Texas, just to name a few. There's only a short amount of time left in this session, just a little over a month. So it is very key that we are supporting our legislators and understanding the impact of their decisions and assisting them in recognizing what adds value and also what potentially could harm our schools here in Duncanville as well as throughout the state. A few bills I want to put on your radar that I think are important that we are watching, some that have been on the move and rank as a real high priority for us. House Bill 1, Senate Bill 9, House Bill 11, and Senate Bill 8. I want to explain what each one of those are. They're listed for you there on the screen. But House Bill 1 is the General Finance Bill. And that bill has been passed on the House. It's moved on to the Senate. What is important to know, although it does increase public school funding by $5 billion, this is still not enough to get us back to the funding levels that we had in previous sessions, and it certainly does not address inflation. And so obviously we are all wanting to encourage our legislators to increase the salary and the compensation for our teachers as well as other employees in the district. So we'll see how this bill continues to move. But at the rate that they're going now, what's been proposed is certainly not reaching the threshold to get us back to the levels that we in public education feel we should be able to sustain. A positive part of this bill, there was an amendment that Representative Sherman here in the DeSoto area, he called it a decisive blow to vouchers. The amendment bans tax dollars from going to private schools and other entities similar to private schools. However, this will continue to be a hot topic since the Senate turned around and passed the voucher legislation as part of Senate Bill 8. So you probably heard in the news over the last several weeks, and the governor has been out in various communities across the state pushing forward his, what he terms as his education savings account. And so there's a lot of conversation going on. We'll see where that goes. It's still a long way to go, even though there's a short amount of time to go into session. The governor has other options. He could call for an extended session, special session. So we'll see how that plays out, and I think that we'll continue to see the momentum increase there over the next couple of weeks. Two other bills that I want to make sure you're aware of that have been dubbed the teacher rights bills. That's Senate Bill 9. It's passed through the Senate, and House Bill 11 has passed out of committee and is headed to the House floor. Senate Bill 9 is concerning the bill that gives teachers a one-time pay allotment. But what's important to know about that is that it would only be for 1 year. So, the districts throughout the state would have to think through how, from a budget standpoint, they would be able to sustain any increases, any one-time payments that come from the legislature. House Bill 11 increases the basic allotment by about 50%, but again, we would be required to provide teacher compensation for salaries, and that would really leave a little room for us to support other needs that we have throughout the district. So, of course, with all of these bills, there likely will be several changes from what I just shared with you. That's a part of the process. That's how it happens over the next few weeks as we get to the end. And in the education business, we say at this point, all the backdoor, behind-the-scenes negotiations that you don't see out in front, now those will begin to take place. And so we'll see what ends up happening with each one of these bills. But I wanted you to know, one, we have a seat at the table. As a matter of fact, we are sending two of our teachers of the year will be in Austin advocating with Raise Your Hand Texas, along with some of our staff members here. And they'll be there in Austin advocating for things that we believe should be a priority in public education. They'll be there talking about compensation and making sure that their voices are heard as it relates to using taxpayers' dollars to fund private education. So we are heavily engaged. We make sure that the legislative priorities that you all developed, have Dr. Alachka meeting with Carl Sherman, literally meeting with Representative Davis, Representative Carl Sherman, and Representative Davis, as well as Senator West. So we literally have a seat at the table. I have submitted different proposals, written proposals to some of the committees that Senator West has been championing and working on. So just want you to know we're very active, very engaged. I give weekly updates and look forward to giving you the monthly updates each month. And we'll continue to do so as we work our way through the session. The next item I wanted to highlight for you was some good media that we got from CBS 11. We do have a Grow Your Own program here in our school district, and it got a lot of positive attention. Of course, the teacher shortage is a problem that we're all very familiar with now. It's a concern across the state, across the nation. We as a district, we've been very strategic and innovative in addressing this situation. Our HR department, led by Ms. Kathleen Brown last month, Made with Pride winner Ms. Patrice Elliott, And two of our students, they were interviewed by CBS 11. And so they shared the many different ways that our school district is building a pipeline of high-quality teachers. Two of our high school students were featured in the education and training pathway, where they get hands-on experience preparing to become actual teachers. And many of these students, they earn their associate's degree before they graduate from high school, making them eligible for our newly formed teacher apprentice program. And so they got an opportunity to share their personal stories. You see the photos of them there as they are being interviewed. These students, they graduate from high school and they immediately go into the classroom making $42,000 a year. Just want you, I won't say that too quickly. They graduate from high school, they have their credentials, and they're able to immediately start making $42,000 a year. So Miss Elliott, the teacher that's featured, she graduated from Duncanville High School and was in one of our pathway programs. She is now in her 5th year as a teacher and was recently named Campus Teacher of the Year for Hastings Elementary. So I want to just say thank you to Miss Kathleen Brown and her team for the innovative idea of our TAP program and all you do to bring great teachers into the district. And it was great with great experience with Channel 11. We were really proud to showcase what is going on here in Duncanville. The next item is our pre-K roundup. We have made a top priority to continue to increase our numbers. On April 6th, we hosted our annual pre-K roundup. That was led by Ms. Pam Brown. She and her team have done a wonderful job of planning and organizing this year's enrollment process. The process was really seamless for parents, and the youngest students seem to be very happy and eager to become Panthers. We currently have 48% of the pre-K 3- and 4-year-olds seats that are filled for the 23-24 school year. And so that's a result of the leadership of the team. I know that they'll continue to do good work to get our students, our pre-K students in school. Some interesting data, we had 176 students enrolled at the roundup. That's 3- and 4-year-olds, 176. We had 318 total to date to enroll, and our capacity is 653 students, so we are 48% full, and really excited about getting our young learners involved and engaged really early in their academic career. The next item is on our boys basketball team. The USA Today named our boys basketball team national champions. We had a 29-1 season. Duncanville boys basketball team had 5 victories over teams with 30-plus wins, including Lake Highlands, which was a team that eventually won the state championship, and one of the top teams out of California, Centennial High School. The Panthers had 11 more wins against teams that had 20-plus wins, including a top team out of Florida, Columbus High School, with wins against champions around the nation and just one loss. Our boys established themselves as the #1 team in the nation for the second year in a row for the 22-23 school year. So we're really proud of their hard work. They obviously endured a lot and were true champions with all that they endured to earn the national championship award. So we're really, really excited about them. So thank you. And then the next item I have, which is the last item, we did employee appreciation is coming up on May 4th, and so we're excited about the upcoming employee appreciation celebration. This is our opportunity to really honor each Spirit of Champion winner. That's the highest honor, the highest award for our employees in the district. And so I had an awesome opportunity last week to visit each one of these individuals, and we did catch all of them by surprise. It was hard, but we were able to keep it a secret as much as we could. These individuals are very deserving, and I look forward to being able to share in more detail their stories. So want to please ask everyone to mark their calendar for May 4th. But pictured here are the Spirit of Champion recipients. We've got the Hastings principal, Ms. DeLonda Robinson. We've got our family engagement liaison, Ms. Lanka Serrano, and our Director of Nursing, Ms. Melanie Grant. And so I want to just say congratulations to these employees and all of our 2023 Employee Appreciation honorees. And, Mr. President, that concludes the superintendent's report for this evening.
Okay, we'll move on to recognitions. Mrs. Wallace.
Good evening, President McNeely, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Smith. We have our donations for this month. If you can go to the next slide, please. So you can see here we have both cash and supply donations. We had a substantial donation from Frost Bank of $1,500, and then we have some supply donations, mostly all of them supporting our Panther Pantry, with one of the supply donations supporting Daniel Intermediate. Are there any questions about the donations that are listed here? All right, hearing no questions, thank you. Next slide. And I will move forward with our next set of recognitions, Made with Pride in Duncanville. So President McNeely, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Smith, each month we honor a student, a staff member, and a teacher who goes above and beyond. They are chosen from nominations submitted by coworkers, classmates, or community members. These individuals reflect the excellence and pride of our district, and they are made with pride in Duncanville. So tonight, we will get our celebration started with Miss Candace Edwards. Miss Edwards, if you'll please join me at the podium. Come on down. Let's give her a round of applause as she's coming to join us. So, Miss Edwards is the secretary at Charles Acton Leadership Academy, and she was nominated by her assistant principal, Miss Candace Wilson. And Miss Wilson wants us all to know that the title secretary does not even begin to describe Miss Candace Edwards. She is the knower and doer of all things, and that's in big bold caps, all things on the campus. On any given day, you might see her doing cafeteria duty, which she signs up for, cleaning up the restroom after a plumbing mishap while she waits for maintenance, comforting a student who is having a rough morning, talking with fourth graders about how their grades look, or working in the book room around textbook season before leaving on the sped bus where she is monitoring after school for Acton and Kennemer. Wow. She loves to learn and will ask to help with tasks that will increase campus culture, including co-leading the campus hype squad. All right. So Miss Candace is an integral part of the leadership team at Charles Acton Leadership Academy, and they feel privileged to have her there. So for these reasons, Miss Candace Edwards, you are made with pride in Duncanville. And next, we will invite Miss Presley to join me at the podium. Miss Presley, come on down. Miss Presley is a functional academics teacher at Duncanville High School. She was nominated by her colleague, Elizabeth Thompson, who is the Sparklers coach and special education teacher as well at Duncanville High School. And she says that Sharon currently teaches functional English 1 through 4. She also teaches world history, world geography, and American history. Wow. She has worked in Duncanville ISD for over 40 years. How long have you been in the district?
40 years teaching and 4 years subbing and 3 years in another district.
Oh, wow. So she has been a lifelong educator and most of that time here in Duncanville. Thank you so much. And she is planning to retire at the end of this school year. Well, we are sad to see that you're going to leave us. Well, we're glad that we are able to honor you tonight. Sharon takes the time to get to know each student personally, their strengths and their opportunities for growth, and she adapts her teaching style to meet their needs. She creates a positive and engaging learning environment where students feel motivated and excited to learn. She has been coaching or co-coaching the Duncanville Special Olympics team since 1988 and is certified to coach in bowling, swimming, bocce. That tells you I don't know what that is, so we'll have to. Okay, I have learned something new tonight. Rhythmic gymnastics, golf, basketball, track, aquatics, stand-up, paddleboard, kayaking, and sailing. Wow. While under Ms. Presley's leadership, the Duncanville Special Olympics team has won thousands of medals with elementary, intermediate, middle school, and high school students in local, district, and state competitions in bowling, swimming, sailing, track and field Special Olympic Games. Ms. Presley's dedication to Duncanville ISD's special needs students, as well as her continued work with Special Olympics, without a doubt, make her made with pride in Duncanville. Let's celebrate.
I'd like to do one more. We have one of our athletes will be competing in Berlin in June. It's sailing, so keep an eye out for him.
Thank you. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, I will share with you guys about a young man that you'll see in the video. I'm looking to my team. He hasn't made it yet. Okay. He is not here with us this evening, but his name is Micaiah. And Micaiah is a 10th grader at Duncanville High School, and he was nominated by his teacher, Miss Andrea Adams. Micaiah is a young man of great integrity. He is quick to always do the right thing without hesitation. In fact, one day Micaiah noticed that Miss Adams' door was slightly open and the keys were in the door. Instead of entering the room, he did exactly what she would expect him to do. He waited in the hallway for Miss Adams to arrive and made sure that she received her keys back. Micaiah consistently demonstrates respect for his classmates, for his classroom, and adults. These are just a few of the reasons that we celebrate Micaiah for being made with pride in Duncanville. So at this time, if we can roll the video and see more about our Made with Pride in Duncanville.
Duncanville ISD congratulates the following student, staff member, and teacher who are made with pride in Duncanville.
Hi, my name is Candace Edwards. I'm the principal secretary here at Charles Acton Leadership Academy. Here I help out as much as possible. I do a variety of things. I'm the principal secretary. I also do a lot of purchasing for the campus and just help out wherever it's needed. It takes a lot of patience to be good at my job. It takes a lot of figuring it out, trial and error, see what works, what doesn't work, but building those relationships with the students and helping them out for them to know that I love them, whether they're good or bad. I love being able to come to work and help out wherever's needed, and if it eases the load on somebody else, I'm there for it.
Hello, I'm Micaiah Joseph from the 10th grade at Duncanville High School. What it probably takes to be a good student, doing what you're supposed to do in the first place and try to do it to the best of your abilities because it was the right thing to do. And I usually try to do more, but sometimes the opportunity arises and it doesn't.
I met Micaiah last year when his reading teacher, oftentimes we would combine our 8th block class, and he's very unique. We don't have any issues. And I think the biggest thing for me, in wanting him to be a Made with Panther Pride representative is he's just an everyday kid, does what we ask him to do, but just a wonderful kid to be around and so insightful just about life and things that go on outside of school. Just a great kid. I think he's going to do great things.
Hi, I'm Sharon Presley. I teach at Duncanville High School. I'm in the FAST department and I teach FAST English 1, 2, 3, 4, FAST World Geography, FAST World History, and FAST U.S. History, and I'm the Special Olympic coach for the district. I think to be good at this job, you have to multitask because all the students are on different levels and needing different things, and they have different attention spans and different needs and accommodations. So in my classroom teaching, I try to do a lot of hands-on stuff. My kids don't have a lot of long attention spans, but they like creating things, and they don't realize sometimes that they're actually learning through creating. But if they had just had to copy it or listen to something, it wouldn't have stayed, but they will remember this.
Duncanville ISD congratulates the following student, staff member, and teacher who are made with pride in Duncanville.
Yes. Congratulations to Ms. Presley and to Ms. Edwards. If at this time, if I can get Ms. Presley and Ms. Edwards to come up to the front, and if I can invite our board president to come down and take a photo with them. Would you like for them to go over here or stand right here? Okay. And if I can get y'all to open your Thank you so much to Ms. Presley and Ms. Edwards for all that you do for Duncanville ISD. If there are any family members here supporting Ms. Presley and Ms. Edwards, if you'll please stand and be recognized. If there are any staff members here supporting them, if you'll stand and be recognized as well. Thank you all very much. And this concludes the recognitions.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. We'll now move on to communication from citizens to discuss pending agenda items before the board. Seeing none, we will now move into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation to one-year probationary professional contracts for the listed employees for the 2023-2024 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Was that 5?
One more.
Oh,
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for one-year non-certified professional contracts for the listed employees for the 2023-2024 school year?
so moved.
Second.
Motion been moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Now we will move to conduct a public hearing on the 2023 District Annual Texas Academic Performance Report, TAPR.
Good evening, President McNeely, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Smith. It is my honor to provide you with an overview of our annual report for the 2021-2022 school year. This annual report is focused on all 5 of our board priorities. Next slide. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about the Texas Academic Performance Report, better known as TAPER, but I want to let you know that the information that I'm sharing with you tonight has been provided to you in various different formats. So we have it in a centralized location, but you normally would hear this information at board meetings similar to accountability overview and updates, our campus, district, and targeted improvement plans. Dr. Bigby provides the first financial accountability rating to you, and then you have safety and security updates. So again, this information is provided to you ongoing in many different formats, but tonight it is housed in one location. Next slide. So as we move into our TAPER report, I want to share with you that I will be saying lagging data. So I am providing you data that's based on the 2021-2022 school year. So it could be data that goes all the way back to 2020. So this data tells us about everything that's already happened and the intended results. So you may ask, why are we looking at data that far back? It allows us to look forward and project our future outcomes. Did we achieve our goals? And then it's also important for us to know this data because it will be in our 2023-24 accountability. Next slide. So our TAPER report has 6 key components that I will share with you tonight. Each year, after the TAPER is published, we are required to present a comprehensive annual report with the 6 required components. Next slide. So looking at the 21-22 school year, I am excited to announce that Duncanville ISD maintained our B rating through the pandemic. So next slide. And so we can celebrate our B rating, but we know that it's more than just our district rating, so we dig deeper into our campus performance ratings. So this year we had 4 campuses that were not rated based on them not achieving an A, B, or C. Next slide. So as we talk about those 4 campuses, we look at the positive, but we also want to focus on what have we been doing this year to ensure that those students achieve and have access. So we've been very intentional about focusing on these 5 areas: professional learning communities, high quality Tier 1 instruction, goal setting and data analysis, targeted interventions and enrichment, and then focusing again on capturing their heart before we capture their mind through restorative practices and student management. Next slide. So I'm not going to review all of these with you, but I will tell you that our campuses, school improvement campuses, and all campuses have weekly coaching support or weekly campus support. You see members of the C&I team at their campus weekly. They have weekly coaching through leadership, through teachers. They have monthly time to collaborate and learn, and then they have monthly monitoring and making sure that we're holding everyone accountable. So in order for us to inspect the work, that we expect. So it's important for us to be visible, but also there to help lighten the load. Next slide. So we know we have a focus on those 4 campuses. We're excited that we maintained our B rating. We also celebrate that we had 7 campuses earn 12 distinctions this year through the pandemic. That is a huge celebration for us. Next slide. In addition to earning the distinctions, we also saw continued academic growth in our students. So we have 4 campuses, school improvement, but we're still growing. So maybe we haven't maintained or grown in the student achievement domain 1, but we see our students working really hard to get there, and our graduation rate has increased over the years. Next slide. So I share all of this with you, and then I need to tell you that our accountability system is changing this year. And so on this slide, I have 2 major changes for you. Anywhere that you see the exclamation mark, it's a change. Our accountability system has it's called an A through F refresh. We look at 4 key areas. That's how we received our rating this year. Student achievement, well, this year they're changing what student achievement looks like. They're changing the cut score for our students. And unfortunately, we don't have that information. And we won't receive that information until the fall. Then they look at domain 2A, which is school progress, academic growth. Normally, we know exactly how much our students need to grow, so we're able to set goals with them, but this year, they're not telling us that. We will not know until August. In addition, we have domain 2B, school progress, relative performance. So they take all of our campuses and put them in a comparison group, and they are ranked based upon how they perform with that comparison group. This year, they're making adjustments. And so our comparison groups have been about the same, but they will no longer be the same. So we're waiting to hear where our students or our schools will fall with the comparison groups. So again, adjustments in student achievement, adjustments in school progress, adjustment in growth, and then our last, closing the gaps, which this one is a major adjustment for us. In the past, if a campus had 20 students in an accountability group, that counted towards our STAR scores. This year, they are moving it down to 10. So if you have 10 special ed students, if you have 10 EL students, that's a large jump for us. So we have some campuses who in the past may not had any points to gain or lose because they didn't have enough students, but this year they will. So as you see, there's 4 areas. All 4 have an exclamation point, and we're waiting for the state to tell us exactly what that will look like. Then on top of that, as if the A through F refresh wasn't enough, we have a STAR redesign. So our STAR test will look very different this year for our students. Students have cross-curricular passages, so students who are taking reading STAR test will be reading about science and social studies concepts for reading. So not only do you need to know all the key components for reading, you need to know science and social studies. Then we're also adding new question types. Our STAR test has been multiple choice for our students. Only 75% of our tests can be multiple choice, so we will have questions that are open-ended. We will have drag and drop. We will have sorts. So our students are having to learn how to actually respond to things that are not multiple choice questions. And tonight in the strategic plan presentation, I will share with you exactly how we're equipping our students to do that. Third, students are having to write. Thinking about coming back from a pandemic, I don't know about you, but my kids write like they text. And so we're having to teach them how to use the evidence-based writing. And then last, all testing is online with brand new accommodations for students. The good news is we've been practicing online testing with the new accommodations all year. We've been writing all year. But again, we have students who have high economically disadvantaged status, really needing to overcome and achieve, and based on the new STAR test, they may be put in a category with districts who do not look like us. So I say all of that to say we're not defeated, right? We will make sure that our students have and can achieve, but I can't tell you what that will look like until the state releases everything in August of next year. Next slide. The second key area is the campus performance objectives. So each campus in Duncanville ISD has developed a campus improvement plan in collaboration with their shared decision-making committee. This includes their performance objectives, which are aligned to the strategic goals. In October, the board was presented the campus plans as required, and then it was approved. If you remember the October board meeting, we went through the campus improvement plans, we went through the targeted improvement plans, and we went through the district improvement plans. And everything was aligned to our board strategic goals. Next slide. The next reporting category is student performance in post-secondary institutions. I want to bring your attention that this is our 2020 graduating class. So we're going back several years. This information comes to us from the Texas Higher Education Board for public universities and colleges only, and it's always lagging data. And it's also self-reporting data. So it's one of the sets of data where students and families have to give us that information for us to know how our students are performing post-secondary. Next slide. The next area of our tapers, our PEAM Financial Standard Report. Dr. Bigby provides you updates monthly over the budget. He also provided an overview in November of this month, but this is where we have receipts, our fund balance, our disbursements. They look at our expenditures and the money that we're bringing in. Next slide. So after we have a review of our PEAM's Financial Standard Report, we have our fiscal transparency and efficiency. And again, this information Dr. Bigby shared with you in November. And I'm happy to say that Duncanville ISD received a Meet Standard Achievement financial rating for the 21-22 school year. Again, this is lagging data. So for the 21-22 school year, it was based on our 20-21 spending. Next slide. So I want to take just a little bit of time to walk you through this slide so that we can all have a clear understanding of where we are. So the next required annual reporting category is that of violent or criminal incidents. So there's a caveat to this slide. As I go through this slide with you, I'm going to share with you the numbers that were reported to the state based upon our assistant principals loading discipline data into our system. We've discovered that we have just kind of a gap in our data and coding that we need to address, and so we've put a plan in place. So as you see the numbers, that's what's reported to state, so I wanted to bring that to you, but we actually have a different set of numbers that's an actual representation of what's happening in Duncanville. For example, exhibited or possessed a firearm, you will see for 2021-22 a 4, but we actually had 2. So we had 2 that were a coding error. So all 4 were reported to the state, but we actually only had 2 in the district. And those 2 were students who transferred in, so they became Duncanville ISD students, but they already had the possession on when they came to us, so they went straight to JJAP. You will also see aggravated assault on a school employee. You see 2. I want to bring your attention that aggravated assault is like a serious bodily injury, so it's different than just an assault, not just an assault, but different than an assault where there could be a threat or there's physical contact. You see a 2, but we actually have a 0. So again, it was a coding error, but I want to make sure that we're transparent and share with you what was reported to the state. And then the one other change that we have where you see aggravated assault on a student. So again, aggravated assault is serious bodily injury. You see a 5, but we had a 2 there as well. So our numbers that were reported were not as significant as what you see, but again, we've put many plans and processes in place to ensure that we do not have the PEAMS coding error moving into the next school year. Next slide. Although the numbers are lower, we do have to spend time addressing our student management. Our kids are coming back from COVID, and so we're having to teach them how school is again. So we have implemented our student support counselors. We've increased our tracking and monitoring of our suspensions and our disciplinary actions with our assistant principals and our principals. We have a social emotional learning curriculum called Second Step, and then training has been provided across the district in restorative practices, trauma-informed care, and threat assessment. Next slide. Our final annual report category is the district's accreditation status. The state considers the district's accountability rating, our financial rating, our data integrity, and our program area deficiencies performance, and then they give us a rating. So again, Duncanville ISD remains an accredited district for the 22-23 school year. Next slide. You and anyone can access our taper information, all of the information that I share with you in multiple locations. It will be housed at the central office reception area. If you want a printed copy, campuses will have them, and then families can access it online as well. Next slide. So this concludes the information that I have to share with you. I am happy to answer any questions at this time.
On the report of the violent and criminal incidents, those corrections that you mentioned, will they be changed at the state level?
So the data is submitted for snapshot, and so that data actually stays.
Got it.
But the system will be updated for this year to make sure it's accurate.
Okay.
Well, I just want to commend you. This was an excellent report, and it was full of information that I could comprehend, and as I read through it, it was very self-explanatory. So thank you for doing this report for us.
Thank you.
So is this grade 3 and up? Is it every grade level practicing the new testing system?
Every grade level and up is practicing the new, will be under the A through F refresh.
And are they using maps, or what are they using to practice?
So we are using, we're testing to practice accommodations through the STAR testing portal, which is Cambium. What better way to give them access than to use our testing system? But we're also using MAP in order to chart the student growth and progress. And I will provide you just kind of an overview of how our students are growing in our strategic plan Priority 1 update tonight.
And what about our district assessments? Are they giving them the same format, or?
So our district assessments are also online. This year, we've embedded all the item types that have changed, so our students will be used to those.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're so very welcome.
I do have a question. You mentioned open-ended questions will be on the STAR this year.
Yes,
Could
ma'am.
you give me an example, or do you have an idea of what that would look like for the young students?
So an open-ended question could look like students reading 2 different passages. Instead of saying, after you've read the 2 passages, what is the central idea? A, B, C, D. Now, student will read 2 different passages, and it will say, or the question will say, please explain the central idea.
Right.
And it's open for the students to actually write and respond, and they're graded on a rubric, and they're hand graded by the state of Texas.
So it is graded on a rubric?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And the state released those rubrics in February. So we have adjusted all of our curriculum to be aligned to those rubrics.
Wow. Incredible. Thank you.
You're so very welcome.
Any other? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments on the Texas Academic Performance Report? Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I would like to recommend that we move the action items 9F and 9G to the consent agenda.
Do I have
Second.
any questions? All in favor of moving? Passes 6-0. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Got them both. Okay, all in favor? Motion passes 6-0. I assume, Janet?
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to our action agenda. If I can find it.
Good evening, President McNeely, Dr. Smith, and trustees. In accordance with BBD Exhibit and BBE Legal, the Board of Trustees is encouraged to advocate on behalf of Texas public school children at the local and state levels. The board has always demonstrated strong advocacy and support for Duncanville ISD students and staff, and we, of course, greatly appreciate your efforts. One action you've taken recently has been to establish legislative priorities for the 88th Texas legislative session, and you've shared these priorities with area legislators to encourage them to stand behind what is in the best interest of the students and staff in our district. As part of your legislative priorities, you ask legislators to oppose any state plan diverting public tax dollars to private entities or homeschools through vouchers or tax credits. As the legislative session has picked up steam over the past few months, so has the push for voucher programs. Therefore, we believe it is pivotal that the board take another step in advocating against voucher programs by passing a resolution that articulates to legislators, especially the senator and representatives that serve our district, that voucher programs, no matter what name they call them, are not in the best interest of Texas public schools. If the board elects to approve the resolution, a copy will be provided to the legislators for our areas and those leading the education committees for the House and Senate. Therefore, it is recommended that the board approve the proposed resolution, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution opposing vouchers, education savings accounts, taxpayer savings grants, and other mechanisms that reduce public school education funding?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor? Passes 6-0.
Thank you.
We move on to the approval of the content filter. Dr. Brown?
Good evening, President McNeely, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Smith. It is my pleasure to present for your consideration approval for purchase in excess of $50,000 for content filtering services. The cost for equipment and 3 years of licensing and support is $129,376.69. Content filtering services prevent students and staff from accessing inappropriate content on the internet. The content filter also functions as an important part of the district's overall cybersecurity plan by allowing us to prevent access to websites known to be infected with malicious software. The list of known infected websites is updated regularly as part of the service. Finally, as part of participating in the federal E-rate program, we are required to provide content filtering on our internet connection in order to be compliant with the Children's Internet Protection Act. This past December, the district released a request for proposal to obtain bids for content filtering equipment and services. The RFP closed in January with 5 vendors responding, submitting 8 proposals. The proposals were evaluated through a 2-round process. In round 1, the review committee evaluated each submitted proposal using 10 criteria, including purchase price, past relationship with the district, reputation, long-term cost, and quality of goods and or services. The top 3 proposals from round 1 were invited to conduct live online demonstrations to the review committee for a second round of scoring using the same rubric. The bid tabulation summary is found on page 158 in your board packet with the individual scoring sheets following. The individual scoring sheets contain the details on the 10 evaluation criteria. We recommend awarding the content filtering request for proposal to Content Keeper through Andrews Network Enterprise, Incorporated, doing business as Filtered Net. That's a mouthful. In the amount of $129,376.69 to be purchased using local funds. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
We're not leaving out ESPN, are we?
No, sir.
Okay.
That's got a valid educational purpose, sir.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the award for RFP 2023 for content filtering equipment and services to Content Keeper through Andrews Network Enterprises Incorporated, DBA Filter Net? Lord have mercy.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second, moved and seconded. Any more questions? All in favor? Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Now we move on to the easement for Encore Electric.
Good evening, Mr. President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Smith. So Encore Electric is the largest distributor of electricity in the state and a primary source for North Texas. So Encore is currently upgrading their wiring to improve the reliability in Duncanville, including the surrounding schools and community. So to meet their goal, they're requesting 3 easements on Duncanville ISD properties along Freeman and Center Streets. So the documents you have before you in your board book have been vetted and processed by our attorneys, and I'm going to go through them with you. So the easement and right-of-way, and that's found on pages 180 and 181 of your board book, is for a permanent easement. So the easement is just under 150 square feet. If you look at Exhibit 3, and that's on pages 190 through 192, that's a rendering and an aerial view of the property and where the easement will be. And so that's going to be used for underground facilities to install a 10 by 15-foot pull box. If you look on the drawing, there's like a blue outline. That is where the pull box will be located on that property. And the pull box is a conduit box. It's typically made of metal that's used to pull wires through. The box will have a drive-over cover, and it's not going to impede or cause a safety concern for us. You'll see on the photo, the requested permanent easement will be on a small piece of land that's outlined in red. It sits on the corner of Freeman and Center Street. It's across from Pace High School. Now, it's kind of hard to see on the photo, but the property currently has 2 trees on the corner, and Encore will remove those trees at their expense. And the tree removal will benefit the district because which reduces labor costs in having to manage those trees. Okay. All right.
Very good.
Okay. Pages 182 and 183 is the easement for temporary working space. The document is for 2 temporary easements. So the first easement is depicted on Exhibit 1. That's on pages 184 through 186. It shows the area Encore would like to use for setup. And that space is the area right next to the parking spaces in front of the gym at Reed Middle School. The second easement is depicted in Exhibit 2, and that's on pages 187 through 189, and that'll be used to stage their equipment. So that area is outlined in red, which is similar where the permanent easement will be. Now, together, those 2 temporary easements, they'll total just a little bit over 5,000 square feet. The temporary easements will not exceed 60 days. Now, upon completion of the project, Encore will restore the land, the property, back to the way it was as close as possible before they started the project. Now, Encore has indicated the project is not going to impact our start of day or our end of day traffic flow in and around the surrounding schools, which would be Pace and Reed. They will work around our drop-off and our pickup times. Now, you might see on the easements, both of them read that Encore will pay the district, quote, $10 in other valuable consideration. Now, this is a standard language that's put on any warranty deed. However, the resolution we're asking you to approve, which is found on pages 178 and 179, states that you, the board, delegate Dr. Smith the authority to negotiate, finalize, and execute all decisions and documents related to the project. So therefore, tonight, we're recommending the board approve the resolution authorizing the granting of 3 easements to Encore Electric Delivery Company, LLC, to improve the electric reliability in the area. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Also available to answer questions is Jim Thomas, Senior Right-of-Way Agent with Encore Electric.
What happens if we didn't improve and they don't have electricity?
The reliability would not be as strong.
Okay, I'm just checking. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question, and then Jackie, I want you to weigh in, real heavy. But you said something about 2 trees would have to be removed?
Yes.
Isn't there a problem with the city on that 2 trees will have to be planted elsewhere?
Not sure if they are required to be planted elsewhere. They're kind of,
In the city of Duncanville,
city.
of course, and preferably, since it's our land, on school district property.
so are you asking,
Of
are
the
they?
same caliber that's being removed. Am I right on that, Jackie?
She referred to tree mitigation requirements. I don't know what type of trees they are. It all depends upon the type of tree. But that's something that we'll want to check with the city, but we will want to check with the city on that.
Okay.
But I don't foresee a problem. That's a very good point.
And we'll be sure to look into that prior to.
Maybe Encore can elaborate a little bit. Do you have the answer, sir?
Yes.
But we need you to come to the mic so that we can record. Thank you.
Jim Thomas with Encore. Thank y'all for having us tonight, reviewing our proposal. Regarding the trees are not in very good shape anyway. We just recommended to remove them just to kind of clear up the area to kind of beautify it, really. But if there's an ordinance that we need to abide by, we probably could.
So I guess there is really no requirement for Encore to remove the trees. You were doing it as a courtesy to the district.
Yes.
Because of the condition of the trees.
Yes. But if someone at the school maintenance department would want to go by and review the trees and see if they think they would like to keep them, and we wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't think the trees would be and would hinder our project.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Does that satisfy your request?
I actually had a question regarding the schedule.
Yes, ma'am.
When were you all wanting to do this work?
60 days is what we're asking upon the signature date on the document.
Okay, so y'all will want to start as soon as
As soon as we receive the document, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you're working around school hours.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the not-
Yes, we would. We would want to definitely double-check that school, their hours, so make sure that we coordinate.
There'd be 2 schools there that would be affected too, 2 different ages.
Okay? Yeah, we'll just need to get the time slot for that, and we'll work with it.
There was a comment about if you all would be able to wait until the summer. To do the work when I guess school is out.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close to that. I could ask if that's a possibility. I can see your concern for that. This is the last piece of the major project that we've done in the city of Duncanville for this reliability project, and I can double check. We're roughly 6 weeks away since school's out?
May, was it 26th?
May 26th?
Yeah.
Okay. I can ask. I'll have a WebEx meeting on Wednesday. I can ask then. And I can get back with Ms. Samora.
Thank you. We certainly appreciate Encore's investment in this, infrastructure.
I do want to, I appreciate that. We're glad to be part of y'all's community. Regarding that pool box that Ms. Samora mentioned, it is a 10 by 15 foot area, but it'll be in a supporting foundation around it because of where we're having it put it. There's a slight hill there, so we want to put a reinforcement behind that so it won't slide down the hill when it rains and stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any particular reason why we wanted to wait to after school, since they're working around beginning and ending of school?
There was a comment from one of our fellow trustees. I defer to them.
So let me just, the recommendation is for us to move forward. We think there'll be minimal distractions to the school environment over the next 5 weeks. However, if the board wishes us to adjust the timeline, we can do that. But in our previous research and looking into it, we feel comfortable internally that we're not going to have distractions to pace nor read.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the granting of 3 easements to Encore Electric Delivery Company, LLC?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor? Motion on approving the resolution passes 6-0. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, 6-0. I'm clairvoyant. I think that means half crazy.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we move on to expenditures from excess 2014 bond funds. Dr. Bigby.
Good evening, President McNeely, Board of Trustees, Dr. Smith. In 2019, the legislature passed legislation that said if all the items on a bond are met and there's excess funds, that the board can authorize the expenditure of those funds in another way that still fits within the umbrella of the bond. We're asking you tonight to approve a new floor in the weight room, and I know absolutely zero about it. So Coach Samples is here to explain to you why we need a floor in the weight room.
And we'll do that on the next item, Dr. Bigby. Let's just take care of this one first. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Anyway, we're asking you to let us expend the bond funds for the weight room floor. It falls within the aging facilities part of the initial bond.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Bixby. How much excess funds do we have?
So right at $200,000, so this spends $125,000 of that. So we'll be back to you with something else because we need to expend those all the way.
Thank you.
But it's, of the amount, it's pretty well all spent.
Any questions?
I have questions, but I guess it would really go to the next one. But,
Well, then we'll get to
but
it.
then we have to vote on this before we find out more about
That's what they tell
the
me.
next one.
Okay.
Well,
Do you have one for this one, or do you want to?
I guess it would really be for Coach.
Well, we got to vote on.
Yeah, I know.
But it does refer to the flooring. So can we table this one and go to the next one?
Well, we got to approve spending.
Any money at all?
Any money at all.
Okay.
But it says specifically on the weight room, in this motion.
I know what we have in this motion.
Okay, so.
Yes, in this motion it does.
But
Coach Samples.
You can turn it down at the next one because you have to
Get up
approve
here
the
and help
purchase.
us out.
True.
This may solve it.
Okay, I didn't read this.
Good evening, Mr. McNeely, trustees, and Dr. Smith. On the weight room floor, the main item is that it exceeds its warranty. So we have some liability issues. If one of our young men or young ladies get hurt in there, then we're liable as a district to be sued because the floor is out of warranty. That's the most important thing. The floor is over 20 years old. There are some health hazards concerned. This floor, with limited staffing and cleaning, it's been through COVID. The floor is actually breaking from the surface, so what I have to do every day is I kind of do patchwork and I put items to keep the floor level so the students don't trip over the floor coming up off of the bottom part of it. And just mainly, it's just not representative of what we would want as a Duncanville High School facility. It's just, it doesn't look right. It's not something that we're proud of. And I have several, I have coaches and people in the building who graduated from Duncanville, and I made sure that I went around and I asked those people, was this floor at Duncanville when you went to school at Duncanville? And some of them graduated in 2000, 2001, and all of them's answer was yes. And that's just not good. I'm afraid for myself because if someone gets hurt in there, you know, I can't rightfully hold up. Yes, ma'am.
You answered one of my questions because I was going to ask, is it used for boys and girls? And you had mentioned girls do use it.
Well,
you said boys and girls.
yes, I did.
Okay.
And I mean boys and girls. So our setup at Duncanville is like our girls soccer and our girls track. They have their own weight room that is actually under the stadium since the improvements. But of course, it's not as up to date as our football weight room. So if they have a need to expand or use our weight room, we're always working together and saying, yes, come on in the weight room. You know, there are different times there's no schedule. They're actually in season, so football leaves earlier right now. So if they know we're out and our kids are out and they say, Coach, can we use the weight room? Of course. So, I mean, it's just open to all of our students.
Where is it located?
It's in the football field house. It's on the second floor in the stadium named after Coach.
Questions? Any more? We got to do two of them.
In one motion?
Do two of them.
No.
Oh, okay.
And let me say that Coach Samples is the best high school football coach I've ever been around. And I believe Duncanville has the best high school football coach in this country.
Woo-hoo.
Okay, now let's move on. Can I have a motion to approve the use of excess bond funds to purchase new flooring in the weight room at Duncanville High School at a cost not to exceed $125,000?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor? Passes 6-0. Now we give him the money.
Thank you guys so much.
We got to give you the money.
We didn't give you nothing yet.
Oh, okay.
You're fixing to get it.
Oh, okay.
Do I have a motion to approve the purchase of new flooring in the weight room at a cost of $124,670.40?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? 6-0. Now you got the money.
Okay, now I can say thank you. Thank you.
But you have to stay till I go home.
By the way, that does come with a 20-year guarantee, the warranty on that floor.
It'll last me.
Yeah, I wished I did.
Yeah, I wish I did too. Mine lasts about 3 minutes.
You're still up.
Let's see, we skipped two. We're at the auditor. Is that,
Yeah,
that where we are?
We're getting toward there.
Okay, you know, by Texas law, we have to be audited every year. And typically, those are set up on a 5-year contract with a firm. For some reason, this contract was set up for 6 years. So we've been 6 years without going out for a request for qualifications. It's not a request for proposal because it's a professional service. We request proposal for their qualifications. Say I'm running out of time. And once we get that back, then the board will give us permission to go to that firm and negotiate the contract. So that's the way professional services work. We put a bid out once, or an RFQ once, and nobody answered. So we put it out again and did a little more publicizing of it, and we got 3 firms that came back. There was a matrix that was sent to each bidder that showed them exactly how we were going to score it. Lisa Miranda, Director of Accounting, and I sat down and individually scored the 2, and then we merged the 2 scoring documents together. And if you'll notice the scoring, which is 232, I believe it is mine, and then Ms. Miranda's, and then there's an average. And all of the firms are very close. They all meet all the qualifications that we asked for. The only difference that we saw, and we both saw it separately and then we merged it together, is item B2. It's on page 234, and that was the qualifications of the people that come to do the audit. And it may be a little unfair because we've seen what Weaver sends us, and they probably have as much trouble hiring people as anyone else, but we've really felt like we've almost had to train some of the auditors that came, and they don't have much experience. Part of the RFQ was, what people are you going to send for our audit? And
that's good.
The firm that we're recommending had a much more detailed description of who they were going to send, plus the years they had had in actual public school auditing, not just in auditing. So that's why that came out a little higher in that one area for Whitley Penn. You'll notice that Weaver was second in the voting, in the tally, and then the other firm was third, and the qualifications of the people that they presented to us looked a whole lot like what Weaver's did. So our recommendation to you is for allow us to move forward with Whitney Penn. They audit a lot of Texas schools, many of them in this area, Mansfield, Arlington, some of the bigger schools in the area, and some of the more our size. So they're quite big as far as auditing. They even often audit some of the bigger districts like Austin. So we believe they'll be a good firm for us. We would negotiate a 5-year contract with them, and it's really good practice to alternate auditors. Some people, I've been in districts that kept the same one for 25 years, and they may be very good at it, but it helps the district to bring in somebody from outside periodically anyway to look at what we're doing, because they can always recommend ways that we can do it better. So that's one reason we're recommending Whitney Penn over the other 2 firms. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve the negotiations with the firm of Whitney Penn for a 5-year agreement for audit services with an exit clause within the agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any questions? All in favor? Carries 6-0.
Thank you. That was easier.
Coach, you can go. I was just kidding. Yeah, it's past mine. All right, we move on to the information and discussion agenda. A is the budget update. Dr. Bibby, we say the best for the last.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know you've just been sitting on the edge of your seat waiting. Next slide. Part of what you're going to see is what you've been seeing, but it's still pertinent to what the process. This is the timeline. We're over on the bottom, or the middle line, the last one on the right. We haven't got into the total discussion of the additional budget requests. There's like $4.7 million worth of those, and that's going to be very difficult, but this is where we are as far as the timeline goes. Next slide. And what we've been doing for the last month, I've got all the campus, and let me rephrase that, all but one campus and all the department budgets have been submitted. We have the additional budget requests in. We're meeting within departments quite often, particularly with HR and staffing. We have weekly meetings with Dr. Smith to try to move forward with budget and just to see exactly where we are. And as you know, we've scheduled a budget workshop for the 25th. That's significant in that they can't pass any more legislation after the 24th. So we wanted to see if we could possibly see what they were going to do to us, for us in the session. So that's why we wanted to do it on the 25th. Okay, next slide. You've seen this before. I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that they only give us a half for each pre-K student. But there's a real plus in that. If we get them to pre-K, then we can probably keep them for kindergarten. So it's a long-term win. We're projecting our funding enrollment at 11,513. We're looking at our percentage attendance. That'll probably base that somewhere between 91 and 92%. Knock on wood, we've held up in the spring, which that's never happened since I've been here, with our enrollment and attendance. So that's a real attaboy to the campuses because they work very hard at keeping kids here. Okay, next slide. Once again, the things that can change, enrollment versus ADA, that's being discussed. Increased basic allotment, it's almost comical. Dr. Smith was covering one of the suggestions is adding $50 to the basic allotment. Well, that's a whopping $800,000 to the district, and half of that has to be spent on designated programs, and the other half has to be spent on any salary increases for teachers, which leaves that much. So any increase in the basic allotment like that's not going to give us very much funding, but there's any discretion about. Safety allotment, we feel sure there's going to be some more there. Salary increases, there's going to be some. This is anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000. The $10,000 teacher raise actually got voted down very quickly. And the 2,000 is being batted around. There's House Bill 100, which was listed in Dr. Smith's stuff, is a total revamp of how we fund schools, and it's a nightmare. If it passes, I'm glad I'm not here. Somebody's got to figure out what all that means, but none of it's going to look the same when they get through with it. As Dr. Smith said, the backroom politics is kicking up now, and it'll determine what we have. Unfunded mandates, there'll be a slew of those again. The ugliest one I've seen is one of the salary increases funds it for 2 years and then doesn't fund it anymore. So it's up to the district to figure out how to do that. Property value adjustments, enrollment fluctuations, and ADA fluctuations, as you know, those all influence what our budget looks like. Next slide. Major differences in the House and the Senate. Appropriations is one, just how are they going to spend the money? As I said, they're talking about $5 billion to public ed, but if they only do it with a $50 basic allotment increase, somebody's getting it, but it's not Duncanville. So we don't know for sure what's going to happen with that. All of them include property tax reduction. The Senate bill is an increase in the homestead exemption, which basically would move from $40,000 to $70,000 if you're living in your homestead, which is nice. The problem with that is those always come with a hold harmless for the district, and after about 2 years they disappear. So we would go back to the funding that we would have at the old homestead exemption, and they've notoriously done this. Every time it's been increased, that's exactly what's happened. The other one is tax compression, which we've been doing anyway, which as far as we're concerned is the best thing that can happen. It's what the House is talking about, where they just decrease our property rate tax on the M&O side and increase the state funding an equal amount. So we hope that the House version of that goes through rather than just the homestead exemption. Plus, it helps businesses too. The homestead exemption only helps if you're in your homestead. If you have a second property, it won't apply to it. Basic allotment, there's talk of $50 to $100 change in that. And there's actually one bill that's got some inflation measures in it. There's been one of those for the last 3 sessions, and they don't ever pass. So who knows? We can hope, but don't hold your breath. Okay, next slide. We talked about the House does have a rider in it. They had an amendment that said they couldn't use any public school money for vouchers. But that amendment passed 86 to 52 in the House. Last session, it passed 115 to 29. So we lost 25% of our anti-voucher support from last session to this one. Part of that could be the governor's pressure. It's really part of his agenda. So it's a little scary what might happen in 2 years if this even goes through. Of course, Texas has a line item veto. So if the bill passes with it in there, all the governor has to do is mark it out, and it won't be part of the law. Okay, next, all the pleasant news. We showed you this before, how we've been able to put some money back into fund balance. And last year we were a little below, and we talked about why that was there. Projecting out now, unless something crazy happens between the end of the year, you'll put some more in fund balance at the end of this year. Okay, next slide. These are updated from last month. You can see our revenues, local revenues, almost $3 million ahead. Once again, a negative revenue is good. The state still owes us about $28 million, and they're not real swift about getting it to us, but we will get that. Federal money is very slow coming in, so we're within $30 million of our revenue, and that should pretty well all come in. Next slide. This is what we've kind of assumed for next year, that there'd be no change in law. We have to start somewhere. ADA is going to be a little bit lower than what we budgeted this year. Talked to the appraisal district the other day. Those values should come in somewhere between 5 and 10, maybe around 8%. Once again, safety may go up and teacher pay. Part of that $5 billion, I forgot to tell you this, is they put $900 million into the TRS insurance fund. So the rates that our employees get or what we have to subsidize shouldn't go up this next session, just like if you remember last session, they put money in to do that. So hopefully we won't see an increase in the premiums for our employees. So that'll be budget neutral, and that's significant from the way you people support our employees' insurance costs. Of course, inflation's going to be there. It's slowed down. It said to, 5.8% a year. TRS contribution, our percentage that we have to pay into TRS for the employees is going up. And we don't know what's going to happen on salaries. Next slide. One of the organizations put out a little template and asked us to figure some inflationary costs. So we looked at 1920 to 22, 23 through March. I looked through March in each one of those years. Fuel's going up 81%. Insurance costs are going up almost 68%. That's property insurance, casualty insurance. Health insurance, 11%. Food service, about 9%. And utilities, 38%. And that's going to be even worse for next year as we started budgeting for utilities next year. So it's not just minute inflation amounts that we're talking about. Okay, next slide. And once again, projecting with current law, we would raise about $483,000 more than we had this year in our budget. So that's pretty insignificant when you talk about a $125 million budget. So hopefully they'll help us. Next slide. Same one we had last time. We talked about fund balance and how much was actually reserved and how much you had available to spend, and we recommended again that you don't spend it. You've got a little over $13 million that's pure discretionary. Next slide. ESSER, we're almost at the end of ESSER. We'll spend it all at the end of next year. It has to be all spent by then, so virtually all of it's pigeonholed already for next year. $4 million of that 6 is already set aside to help pay for the raises that we gave last year. If you remember, we spent $6.7 million out of ESSER this year, and we've got $4 million set aside next year to continue to pay down on those. Okay, next slide. And I'm going to breathe and see if you have any questions. It's a lot of stuff.
Very good. Good information.
Any questions? Jackie?
Dr. Bixby, on the current state of general fund revenues, there is a negative $2.8 million in the local.
Yes, ma'am.
So is that due to us receiving more property tax money than
Yes.
it? Okay, so it's not actually a negative unless these other two have to balance.
Now, the negative means we've collected more than what we budgeted.
Mhm.
When it's revenue, if you can get all negatives, then you're really good.
Yes. So we're actually anticipating $33.5 million remaining.
Yes,
Okay.
from the other entities.
Yes, sir.
And once again, they'll shift, the state funding will shift some of that. Federal money may not show up for 6 or 8 months, so it's hard to predict it. But the state and the local is pretty well nailed down. But yeah, we collected a bigger percentage this year than we did last year, plus the tax attorneys have collected more delinquent money than we did last year. And part of that too is the interest rates have gone up enough that the money that we have invested has actually gained about $900,000 this year, and last year we gained about $200,000. So a large piece of that's just actually we've had more interest in it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Bigby.
Thank you.
Now, Board of Trustees Education Hours. As board president, I'm required to announce the name of each board member who has completed, exceeded, or is deficient in meeting the required continuing education CEC hours. I'll read the board that's here. Phil McNeely exceeded the required continuing education CEC hours. Carla Fahey exceeded the required continuing education CEC hours. Janice Savage Martin exceeded the required continuing education CEC hours. Janet Faircruz exceeded the required continuing education CEC hours. Jackie Colton exceeded the required continuing education CEC hours. Dr. Ivory exceeded the required continuing CEC hours. Anybody want to discuss that? We're a trained up bunch. Anybody?
Do you have to do Cassandra?
I don't know why. All right, Cassandra Phillips deficient in required continuing education CEC hours. Anybody else got anything to say? Okay. Facility assessment update. Excuse me. Mr. Brackens?
President McNeely, members of the Board of Trustees, and Dr. Smith, I'm pleased to present the facility assessment update that was approved by the board for us to proceed last month. And again, I certainly want to acknowledge and appreciate the opportunity to partner with and serve Duncanville ISD, and also just acknowledge Ms. Zamora and her team, who were basically made themselves available for interviews and different things that we needed as well. And I'd like to give you an update in terms of where we are. We're excited to be able to get boots on the ground last month, and I want to give you an update in terms of what we were able to accomplish in terms of interviews and actually assessing the facilities. So next slide, please. This gives you a timeline, assessment timeline, and looking ahead at what we're seeing. You'll see that we've set up basically a calendar that shows really a flag indicating the milestone. So March through April, obviously we started the facility assessment, and we've continued with the interviews with the leadership teams. And again, we appreciate the department directors and the leaders that have made themselves available for those interviews as we continue in the process. We're headed towards May 15th, where you should receive the facility assessment report, where all the data will be compiled, and you'll be able to make decisions based on that data. You'll see May, June, should you decide to proceed in that direction. Those are the anticipated committee meetings. Obviously, August 21st is the deadline to call in an election, should you choose to do so, and November 7th is Election Day. So next slide, please. Our core components, again, of our facility study, we had a facility study and space utilization analysis, long-range planning and master planning development, and then ultimately, should you choose to do so, the bond planning and the bond program development and informational campaign. Okay. Next slide, please. The facility condition and space assessment, just want to give you some of the statistics so far. We've been able to see that the check mark indicates that we've been able to get that accomplished in this time period. So again, we were happy to get boots on the ground and start moving. So the general condition of the district assets, basically 15 campuses that we've been able to visit. The senior leadership and operations staff interviews, we've been able to conduct 25 interviews and get that input. The educational space adequacy and the capacity utilization that we're looking at. We're compiling all of the data and beginning the analysis of understanding how that space is utilized and what some of the recommendations will be based on the data that we give you. And we've also been able to take a look at the operational needs, the practical and functional needs of the campuses that we've been able to visit. So that's been completed so far. Moving ahead to the future would be the long-range planning. And that's when the future educational delivery and grade level program, we'll be able to look at some of those items. Also reviewing the current district situation. Those are things that are still left in our timeline to get completed. So next slide, please. So on the space and operational adequacy, I want to give you some idea of what we're doing with that data and how we are compiling it. We're looking at the campus space utilization. You see some of the photos from our walk there, and you can see that we begin to take a look at the classroom and the spaces, see what's in the spaces from the furniture and equipment and technology, and understanding how many students can actually be in the space and whether the space is overutilized or underutilized. And so with that, we look at access, the safety and security, and this is a strange word, but I always use it, the pedagogy and space alignment. That's basically your educational delivery. Your grade program and space transitions are also part of the analysis of the data that we're putting together. Okay. Next slide, please. Coming after we get all of the information together is going to be our master plan development. As you'll see, it'll be a compilation of facility assessment and long-range planning in preparation for a bond program, should you choose to do so. And you can prioritize the process in terms of, based on the data that you receive, what the priorities are going to be for the district. And that obviously will include district leadership, board of trustees, and others to analyze the data and determine what happens first and what the priorities are and explore alternatives. And so we'll also develop ultimately a scope and project priority list based on that data and based on the needs of the district. Okay. Next slide, please. Be happy to address any questions or any updates that you'd like for me to give at this time.
Any questions? None? Thank you, Mr. Director.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll continue working.
Thank you.
All right.
Dr. Jordan, strategic plan update, priority 1, student academic success.
Good evening, President McNeely, members of the board, Dr. Smith. It is my pleasure to provide you with a strategic plan priority 1 update. Next slide. So our strategic plan has 5 priorities. Over the next few months, you'll have many different leadership members coming to you to provide you with an update. Tonight, I'm going to focus on priority 1, which is student academic success. Next slide. Before I get into the update, I just want to remind you that just state that our current goals are based on that previous accountability system. So tonight, as you see the goals, we're going to need to modify them and adjust them, but right now, our target's moving and they're undefined. The commissioner said, this came from his mouth, because of the new changes, this year's rating can't be compared to anything else. So tonight, as I'm providing you an update, know that we are right now comparing apples to oranges. But we do have some data, and I do want to share that with you. And our next step, once accountability measures are released in the fall, we will come back and update our strategic plan goals to meet the needs of our new accountability system. Next slide. So instead of drilling down to the percentages, our priority 1 goal is focused on improving 3rd grade math and reading performance, increasing our college, career, and military readiness indicators, and then looking at the number of academic distinctions, honors, recognitions, and scholarships we have in the district. Again, we have those percentages, but we're looking at apples to oranges. Next slide. So as we look at goal 1, where we're looking to increase 3rd grade reading scores, we have a district-wide strategy that we've put in place. As stated earlier, students are now expected to write. So we have implemented district-wide in grades 2 through 12 a new strategy where we're teaching students how to think critically. We have also approximately 100 K through 4 teachers who are participating in the Texas Reading Academy. So these teachers are learning the science of teaching reading, and that has been great for our students. We're going back to phonics and phonemic awareness. We've offered over 25 professional development sessions during the school day, after school, on Saturdays, specifically for our ELA reading teachers. It is very difficult to teach reading, and it's even more difficult to teach it after students have come back from a pandemic, and so we want to pour into our teachers. And then in November, the board approved for us to purchase intervention resources. So for reading, we purchased a plug-and-play resource. This was the resource that you all approved where the kits were already set up, the bookcases and the libraries were together. I compared it to similar to those little baggies where the books went home. So thank you so very much for that. We were able to receive those in January, and due to the short amount of time for our intervention teachers using those, I don't have solid data to tell you if it's effective, but I will be bringing that back to you at the conclusion of this school year. Next slide. So now we're talking about increasing math performance. We know that our students have a large deficit in math due to being home and not having those foundational skills. Similar to implementing a reading strategy district-wide, we're also implementing a math strategy. We are teaching our students to think critically and outlining that for them. It's similar to readings like we model a read aloud. We are modeling problem solving for our students. We have 4 elementary campuses that are implementing student data binders this year. You may ask why 4. We're starting slow to make sure that we get it right, and then we will build from there to increase to the other elementary campuses going into the next school year. And we've made a major revamp to our curriculum to include instructional considerations for our teachers, so they're not having to think, what does this look like? Instructional strategies that are researched. We have included performance assessments, and then we've also added exemplar lessons, which is very important with a number of new teachers we have coming out. We need something for them just to pull and go teach. And again, in November, you approved the Do the Math resource. That was the Heinemann purchase, and that's for us to have an intervention program that is ready for our students, and teachers can focus on providing Tier 1 instruction and not planning for intervention. Next slide. I stated this earlier, but we have really been focused on providing campus support collaboration, and learning, our best resource is human resource. And so our teachers and principals have done a phenomenal job coming together and learning together. In addition, partnered with the school leadership, we've been able to provide coaching ongoing on campuses, just-in-time coaching for principals, assistant principals, and teachers. And then we are, if you ask any campus leader or any teacher, they will tell you that they see central office in their building daily. So we are there with them and working with them to make sure we have targeted and instructional support. Next slide. So I want to show you this. I'm very proud of the next few slides. So although we don't have data that we can compare, I can tell you that we are growing in Duncanville ISD. So if you look at this data is our map. It's a diagnostic. It's almost like that check engine light that comes on your dash that says there's something needed and we need to intervene immediately. So if you look at the blue is our elementary campuses data at the beginning of the year to the end of the year last year. So the blue shows how much growth the students had in 1 year. But if you look at the red, it shows how much growth the students have had in a half a year. So for example, if you look at Maryfield, last year, their median growth score was a 44 in a full year. This year, their median growth score is a 51. So if you ask me, are the plans that you are putting in place, how do you know they're successful? Our kids are growing. And they're growing at a similar rate. If you look at Hastings, one of our school improvement campuses, if you look at last year, their growth, median growth, was 25 for a full year. For middle of the year at Hastings, their growth is a 45. So the targeted and intentional support is working with our campuses. Next slide. And I am honored and excited to share with you that of our 2 school improvement campuses, Hastings and Alexander, they've had to submit artifacts to TEA. We've had TEA in the district conducting walks, conducting interviews with the teachers. Both Hastings and Alexander will be state exemplars and representing Duncanville ISD. So the state will be using their artifacts, will be using their systems and processes that they observed, and will be passing them out all over the state to use as a process that other campuses can implement and take away. So we are very excited to showcase those 2 campuses. And it's hard. Sometimes you see a school improvement label and you think the kids can't and the teachers won't. But there's great things going on at our school improvement campuses for sure, and soon the state of Texas will see it. Next slide. So for Achieve of Goal 3, that's increasing our college, career, military readiness. This year we implemented 2 new grants. That's our Gear Up grant, which is focused on allowing students to have early access to college readiness. That's the GO centers that we have implemented at the middle school. And then our Wired grant gives students access to engineering programs all year long, which this year will be some summer professional student learning opportunities. So those 2 grants were $1.2 million. We have 25% of our sophomores taking the college readiness exam. So we're starting early. We're not waiting until senior year. We have 5 of our CTE teachers that are adding industry-based certifications. So they're crossing over. They see a need and they're filling a need. I might be the automotive teacher, but I'm getting a certification in engineering so that I can help my students. And then 100% of our high school counselors have been trained and supporting in the college, career, military readiness. So they are able to guide our students. Next slide. This year we launched JROTC. We have approximately 100 students in the program with a wait list of approximately 100 for next year. So we're looking at doubling that program growth. We've offered over 30 college and career readiness workshops for parents and students. This is where parents can come up during the school day, after school, receive support with FAFSA, learning about college, helping with college applications. We've had over 81 test prep sessions this year to help our students with the TSI A 2.0, SAT, ACT. All of those are the college readiness exams that our students need to take in order to be admitted into college. And I know that we discussed this previously, previously, but we had 2 of our JROTC students receive a Navy and Army scholarship. We have 1 National Merit finalist, and we have 1 student who has a UT Impact scholarship. Next slide. But what does all that mean? We have so much great data going on in Duncanville. So this year, we've increased the number of gifted and talented students that we've identified. Last year, we had 140. This year, we have 212. So we're starting very early supporting our students. Next slide. In addition to that, NIMSI, which is our National Math Science Institute. So these students receive funds. They get a check when they're recognized for NIMSI, and it's from scoring a 3, 4, or 5 on their AP exam. Last year, we had 12 students. This year, we have 55 students. So again, really investing in our students to make sure that they have what they need, and we can see it from elementary all the way up to secondary. Next slide. Our College Board Awards. Last year, we had 5 AP scholars, and this is advanced placement scholars. This is based on their advanced placement test and where they score compared to nationally ranked students. This year, we have 19 AP scholars, 2 APs with honors, 1 AP with distinction, 3 African American recognitions, 8 National Hispanic recognitions, 1 College Board National Merit Commended Scholar, and 1 College Board National Merit Scholarship finalist. So we've moved from 5 all the way over to a plethora of students who have been recognized this year based on their advanced placement scores. Next slide. And then this year, we just completed UIL at Duncanville High School, and as you can see, we represented Duncanville very well. We had 1st place in math and prose, 2nd place, 4th place, and 3rd place, and so we made sure that we put Duncanville on the map. Next slide. So as we look at priority 1, we still have some work to do. We're still working to implement some of our actions. We're about 60% of the way achieved and accomplished. We still need to work on embedding those instructional strategies into our reading curriculum. I talked about that for math, but our focus is to do that for reading. We can focus on increasing our sophomore TSI 2.0 numbers. So we've been trickling down from seniors to sophomores, and then working to adjust our systems and process to account for the accountability update. I know I provided you with a lot of information, but there's so many great things going on with our students. I am happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
You saved the best for last. This was such a good presentation.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all of the scholars and the campuses and the leaders that were all involved. There are great things that are happening here in Duncanville, and we are proud to be part of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
My first one is it still an option for AP students to take the AP test? What are the expectations or mandates for them to be in the course? Students are taking advanced placement courses. So my question is it still optional, because we need them to take the test if they have the privilege of being in the courses?
So it is still optional. However, last year and this year, we have paid for our students to take. Actually, Duncanville High School and the Advanced Academic Office paid for our students to sit for the exam. That's eliminating many of the barriers, but we have not made it a requirement, but we have seen our numbers increase just by us covering the cost.
Okay. Are we thinking about how we can do something about that?
We are thinking about it. We're waiting for this class. We adjusted ranking weighting scores for this last class. And so once they graduate, we will be looking at exploring the idea of, if you are in an AP class, requiring you to take the test.
And board, I'm asking that because students get AP credit and they have advantages as far as their GPA is concerned for just taking the course. But if they don't take the AP test, then the district really doesn't get the benefit that we could get from them taking the course. So they're getting a benefit from being in the course as far as grade point average is concerned. But many, I don't know what our percentage are, but the last time I checked, many do not take the AP exam. And so I just want us to figure out how we can do that. I've seen some district not give them the weighted, the additional weighted credit if they don't take the AP test. So they're not penalized, but you don't get the additional weighted, the college portion.
Yes.
So I was concerned about that. And what does the test prep sessions look like on the campus for TSI and SAT and ACT?
So it's different for SAT and ACT. We've partnered with College Board, so they actually bring tutors out for us to work directly aligned with the questioning and with the level of rigor of the questions. And so they actually come in and work with our students. And then for TSIA, it's actually our campus level staff, similar as we've been able to receive the breakdown of the tests, knowing the different dimensions. And so students test, we get their information back, we know their gaps and deficits, and they're placed in different rooms based on that.
Okay. And then the last one, do you have any surveys with targeted feedback to the district staff on the impact that you guys are making on the campus? We see the data, and I think that's great. But have you done any surveys for maybe even qualitative data from the principals and other staff members to just give you feedback on the district level support that's going to the campuses?
So partially, so as it relates to our advanced academics department, we have survey data for that, but collectively for all the different implementations, no, but that's something that we definitely can put in place.
Okay, I think it'd be good for you guys as well.
Let me jump in here too.
Yes, sir.
I meet with principals on I have a coffee conversation with principals on a regular basis. And while it's not a formal survey, it is qualitative data because they give me feedback on how things are going, what's working well, what's not working well. And I'm able to take that back to our staff, and then we're able to make adjustments based on the specific campus level feedback that I get. In addition to that, I do have a teacher leadership council. It's just me and teachers. And we also meet, I think the next one's coming up next week. And again, not a formal survey, but it is an ongoing meeting where they're giving me qualitative data and feedback on a regular basis. What's working well, what's not working well from their perspective. And I do take that information back, meet with our team, and then we make adjustments as needed. So wanted to be sure I shared that piece with the board as an ongoing way for me to be able to collect information and feedback specifically from various stakeholder groups.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any communication from citizens? Anybody got anything else to say? Let's go home. We're adjourned.